Well, hello there, everyone. We are now broadcasting, I believe. So thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to bring up the chat, and please do give us a wave and just let me know that you can hear us. That would be really, really good. Thank you. Here we go. Here's chat. Right, we're going to get going with the webinar today. Hi everyone, I'm Abby. Quite a few of you will know me out there already, doing a lot of these webinars at the moment, sharing information about Salesforce, Supermums and our courses. Today I am joined by Alan. Hi Alan.
Hi there.
Thanks for joining us today. It's actually few minutes before we went live is the first time we've met, so this is going to be really interesting for me to have a chat with you as well and find out a bit more about you and also about platform developer. So a lot of you may know I am an admin who's been through the Supermums course, so I know a bit about the platform developer course, but I'm just really interested to have a chat with you about it and find out a bit more too. So with that, so Supermums, we have, just trying to get the slides to move along here. Here we go, a little bit about Supermums for those of you who don't already know. But actually, well, we can update this in numbers slide now. We've over 200 Supermums and some dads as well. So if you're a dad or a guy out there, you're more than welcome to join us as well. They've completed our courses, mainly our Supermum administrator course, but we do have courses in platform developer, marketing and consultancy as well. We work with a lot of charities to offer them pro bono support, and that is part of this course, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We've got some fantastic volunteer mentors who work with us as well, and lots of great companies who are involved in working with us, offering that pro bono work experience, but also as sponsors, and here we've got just a few. The platform developer course is actually sponsored by Deloitte Digital, so thanks for them for helping us get this course going. They know how important these skills are for the growth of the Salesforce economy and really encouraging more people, particularly more women, to get involved in the higher levels of Salesforce, perhaps on the architect track, for example, of which Platform Developer 1 is one of the first steps. However, it's a great cert to have under your belt, even if you're just remaining in an admin role or if you want to be a consultant. And we're going to go on to talk a little bit about why that is in a minute. So, Alan, hello. Let's have a chat and find out a bit more about you today. So, welcome to Supermums and the webinar. So, do you want to start just by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Salesforce?
Okay, it's going to test my memory a little bit because it's been, lots of people ask me that and I sort of say it was about 4 or 5 years ago. Now I realize it's about 8 years ago. Time flies. I've been a freelance consultant for consultant developer for probably about 20 years. And I made the decision to move into Salesforce about 8 years ago for a couple of reasons, really. One is the technology I was working with for a number of blue chip companies was on premise, and it was coming to the end of its shelf life, or at least I thought it was. A few people suggested Salesforce, so I started to look at it. And also decided at the time what I'd quite like to do was move into the non-profit sector. So 2 big changes. So I took a couple of months off and did my best to cram as much sort of Salesforce knowledge as I possibly could. Then I got a little bit lucky. Luck always helps, I think. I approached a consultancy who just works in the non-profit sector and said to them, you know, I know you'll be taking a bit of a chance. I've got a lot of development experience. I've not got consultancy experience, but no Salesforce experience, just what I've taught myself. Would you take a chance? And they said, well, we'll sort of consider it. We'll get back to you. And I thought, well, okay, it was worth a try. They had a big project coming up, and the lead developer they wanted on that project dropped out at the last minute. So they had me on their books. They gave me a call. I turned up the next day at the kickoff meeting for that project, and that was at Guide Dogs UK, which was a big implementation for them. It was a 2-year project, a multi-million-pound project that featured at one of the keynotes for Salesforce a few years later once it was in place. So yeah, it was a bit in at the deep end. but it was good fun. It was a good project. It was great company to work for. And it was great to work for Guide Dogs for the Blind. They do phenomenal work, and so it was really nice to sort of help them with that. So it ticked all the boxes there. So I got in. Since then, I've worked for lead consultant on the UNICEF UK implementation, which was a couple of year project. The biggest non-profit success pack project in the world at the time, depending on how you measure it. This is measured on everyone. There's about 3 or 4 claiming that title. Okay. This is measured on recurring donations. So that's how they claim the title. They do hundreds of millions of pounds each year. And Greenpeace Southeast Asia, which was interesting because I was working in Thailand for a bit, and numerous other kind of projects. More recently, I now work for about 6 or 7 different organizations based at home, lots of different companies doing some development work, some sort of what you'd class as administration work, some pure consultancy work. It's a mix of everything, really.
It sounds like Salesforce has got you kind of one of those kind of really flexible careers that a lot of people who talk to me about wanting to get into Salesforce, that is what they're looking for, this kind of flexible remote work. So how have you found that? How have you found kind of managing your time, especially at the moment? I guess we're in these unprecedented times where now everyone's working from home, but you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, it was strange because when the lockdown happened in the UK, I kind of thought to myself, well, I'm set for that because effectively I'm locked down anyway. I work from home. I manage my own time. I work when I need to work. I take time off when I need to take time off. It's all under my control. This will be fine. I've actually found, oddly enough, and I don't know what it is, whether it's just the news and everything that's going on at the minute, I found concentration harder in the last few weeks since lockdown than I have before. I've always found it very easy to work from home. I find it difficult to stop working at home. Maybe that's where the biggest problem I have. But actually working, I have no problems with at all. But the last few weeks, I have found concentration is more difficult. And I've heard a few other similar reports of that.
Yeah, it can go one way or the other, I think, sometimes just getting focused into something can be a bit more challenging. But once you're into it, especially something in Salesforce, I find, and that's the problem with that idea of stopping, you just want to finish it or find the solution to the challenge and just get it done. You can really bury your head into it sometimes, which is an aspect of it that I really enjoy as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I love about, one of the reasons I chose Salesforce as a technology to move across to is what I've always liked doing is, I'm a developer at heart, but what I like about the Salesforce platform is I can take a business requirement and I can see that all the way through to delivery, and that requirement being solved and the business moving on and achieving things that it couldn't do before we started the project. And that's a wonderful thing about the Salesforce technology that other technologies don't really give you. If you work in development in other technologies, you end up being a cog in a bigger machine.
Yeah.
Whereas with Salesforce, through administration and also sort of combining a bit of development in that as well, and consultancy, you can do the full piece, which is just fantastic. Someone will approach you with something and say, I don't know, we need to improve this particular KPI. We know we've got the information, we don't really know how to do it. And you can discuss with them exactly what their problem is. You can work out what the best solution is. You can actually then build that solution, and then you can go through to delivery and you can tweak it and make sure it fits exactly what people want. And you can kind of see the smiling faces at the end of it.
Yeah, and I guess that brings us really nicely to talking a bit about platform developer, what it is and why people should take it. Because you were saying there that, as an admin, we have this clicks not code platform that we can use, that we can do an awful lot with, which is fantastic. But sometimes, especially as you become more advanced or working on more complex implementations and business problems, you hit those points where perhaps you need a little bit more functionality or a little bit more information or need to understand it a bit more. And that's where Platform Developer 1 comes in, right? So how do you, why should people take Platform Developer 1, do you think? Like, if you're an admin, been an admin for a little while, thinking about it, kind of what's the added bonus that it gives you, I guess, is what I'm asking with Platform Developer.
The way I look at it is, when you're given a problem or given a set of requirements from someone that you need to solve within using the Salesforce platform, the Salesforce platform gives you a toolbox that you can reach into to kind of solve that. And whether that's, I don't know, maybe it's using Process Builder, or whether it's using flows, or whether it's using workflow rules or fields or formula fields or whatever, there's a huge number of tools you can reach for. But to deliver that solution, the skill is choosing the right tool for the job. So, I mean, for instance, if you're working, if you've got a very small org, and you just need to maybe, I don't know, someone's going in and creating a record every now and then, and they need another record to be created on the back of that, or they need a field updated, something like Process Builder is kind of going to tick the box for you probably, and it's job done. If you're working in a large org though, and you want to do the same thing, you've got performance considerations to think about. And at that stage, then moving more to a coded solution is going to give you performance benefits that you won't get through a click solution. But unless you've done something like the platform developer course, you won't know exactly what's in your toolbox. So you won't always be able to deliver the right solution or recommend the right solution. The Platform Developer 1 course is not about learning to become a developer. It's really about having a better understanding of all of the tools that the Salesforce toolbox offers you, so it can help you make the decision about which tool you should reach for. And that might mean you get to the stage where you say, well, actually, to achieve this, I'm going to need a trigger, or I'm going to need a Lightning component built for me, or I'm going to need a Visualforce page or whatever. It might mean that you, at the end of this course, hopefully you'll have enough knowledge to make that decision of what tool should be used. And then you might have to reach out to hire a developer, and I'll give my number out at the end of this if anyone wants to do it. But at that stage, you might want to reach for a developer to get them to do that part for you. But at least you will know that you'll be delivering the right solution for your client. And you won't just be, I mean, one of the problems we saw, if you think back to kind of when spreadsheets came out, everybody started to use a spreadsheet for every single problem because that's what they knew how to use. And you got some spreadsheets doing some things they really should never have done or never been close to. And unfortunately, with the Salesforce platform, if you only know the click side of it, you can end up misusing it, and you can end up creating solutions which are hard to maintain, which have big performance issues with them, which just don't scale potentially. Or you're giving someone a solution which is kind of less than optimal, because a Visualforce page or a component will give them exactly the fields they need to get their job done, whereas you're taking them through a flow which might give them 10 screens to do something that a coded solution would provide them on one. But unless you know what all those tools are that are available to you, then you can't kind of make that decision. So I think that's one good reason for doing it. I think the other reason for doing it is that we're not all lucky enough to kind of work on greenfield sites whenever we sort of start up. Sometimes as an administrator, we move into an organization which has been around for a while, and there's a lot of legacy code in there, and there's a lot of legacy Visualforce pages, various other things. So Platform Developer 1 should give you enough information so that you won't be scared about going in and actually looking at it and getting an understanding of what it's doing. It might not get you to the position where you can make changes, but hopefully it will get you to the position where you say, oh yeah, this is the thing that's causing me being the problem. That's the area we need to look at. So there's two things there really, I think.
Yeah, really good examples actually, and that's what we try and make sure people who are approaching us about the course understand, or even some of our supermums who have done their administrator and want to progress their career. Yes, not everyone is going to go on and be a technical architect, and you don't have to, you know, go on to be able to read and write the code. It's about understanding what it is and what it does, so you can go and find that person when you know you need them. And I think that was yeah, really well explained there, so thank you for that. So, and you started to mention a few things in there, like Visualforce and triggers. So I wondered if we could just talk a little bit about what the course actually involves in a little more detail, what kind of topics are covered, just to give people a little bit more of an insight into what they'd be studying if they joined the course.
Yeah, it's, as I said before, that it's not a, you don't have to be a developer to do this course, definitely. There will be some topics along the way that if you've never done any kind of coding before are going to stretch you a bit, but in some ways kind of that's fun. That's all sort of the learning experience. We're all if you do any kind of course and it's not stretching you a bit, then you probably could have skipped that course and done something else instead. So there are going to be some things that will stretch you, but it's not a full-on developers course. It's about trying to give you enough understanding about what's going on, as I said earlier. So the sorts of things you're going to cover, some of which you're going to be very familiar with. I mean, some of this is, if you've come from a Salesforce administration background already, then some of the topics that are covered in there, you're already going to know. So there's stuff about formulas and relationships and importing data and exporting data, the sorts of things you'll probably know already. And that forms about, I think, 13-14% of the course. There's also
of what you should already know as an admin, just like a reminder, building on that.
Exactly, yes. You're almost kind of ticking that box before you even sort of start the process, start getting into the rest of it. Then there is some kind of Apex programming. There is some Visualforce programming. The project that kind of runs alongside the course is based on Apex and Visualforce. It's a nice project. It's and your mentor will kind of help you through that process. You've actually got something at the end of it which you can say, wow, I actually built that, you know.
Yeah.
I built that. But the course itself is about giving you understanding rather than, yeah.
Just to go back, because we do have people who watch these webinars who are just starting their Salesforce journey and looking at where they can go with it. So, like, what is Apex and Visualforce?
Okay, so the I'll start with Visualforce because it's probably easier to comprehend. Visualforce is everything in Salesforce changes kind of constantly, and Visualforce is it's been around for a long while, and it will remain around for a long while, even in the world of Lightning and things. Although you'll hear a lot about Lightning components and things as replacing Visualforce, and that is going to come. But Visualforce is still going to last for a long while. What Visualforce allows you to do is it allows you to create very custom pages, real custom sort of experiences. If you think about even in the world of Lightning, you can do quite a lot to kind of customize the look of a page, for instance, a record page. But there's only really so far you can go. The actual sort of detail element, the fields that appear on there, there's not much you can do beyond what you used to be able to do in Classic. With Visualforce, you've got complete customization over that. So if you wanted, if someone's got we wrote a Visualforce component for a Visualforce page for UNICEF. They have a process where they're getting donations in, and they have to get these donations into Salesforce really quickly. I mean, they actually sort of scan them with a barcode reader, and then they type in additional details. And they're doing like, I don't know, I can't remember what it was now. It was 1 every 6 seconds, I think, is what they were getting these into the system. So we couldn't do that through standard Salesforce pages. You know what a standard Salesforce page is. You do a create, you edit, you fill the fields in, you save, you wait for that to save, you do it. So what we had to do is create a kind of table which automatically added rows onto this table as you started typing data in. And then from those rows, it then created all the records in the background. And that was all based around a Visualforce page. So it gives you that full flexibility. So you can tailor the experience to exactly what that person needs to do. So it's kind of the page side of it. It's very similar to writing a web page, HTML web page, is that kind of thing. Okay. Apex is kind of the underlying code, if you like, that Salesforce is built on. It's actually built on Java, I think, more than Apex, but it's the sort of the building blocks underneath. You tend to use Apex for putting the coded bits behind, say, a Visualforce page. In the new world, when you get onto Lightning Web Components, it's also the kind of the back end that kind of communicates from a Lightning Web Component back to kind of creating records, updating records, that sort of thing. You also use it for kind of big batch processes, and you also use it a lot for kind of triggers. And what we mean by triggers really is, if you think about a process builder, when you do, or a workflow rule, when you make a change to a record or something, then when you save that, a workflow rule or process builder or whatever kicks off and it will do things. Well, triggers are another way of doing that, but you write them in Apex. Apex is kind of a friendly version of Java. If you've done any kind of programming before, Apex is a nicer simpler version of kind of any programming language you'd probably come up against.
So would it be useful if people aren't familiar with it kind of before the course, just to take a look at Java or do one of those, and just to be familiar with it?
Yeah, if you looked at sort of standard sort of Java concepts, a bit about kind of object we have in the course itself, and I'm sure if anyone else we can supply some links. Yeah. We've got some links to sort of some Java resources which just go over sort of the fundamentals of things like, I'm going to start mentioning even more jargon now, which I don't really want to do because it might scare people off, but things like object-oriented programming, and it talks about variables and loops and statements and all those sorts of things, the sort of fundamentals that are kind of common to pretty much every programming language. So if you read up about any of those, then that would give you a good starter for kind of Salesforce and Apex.
That's good to know. And as you say, don't be scared of it. I know when I first started out in Salesforce, and you were talking about being thrown into the deep end with some of your first roles, it's that kind of roller coaster of a journey, isn't it? Especially with something like Salesforce, where there's so much to learn. At first, you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then you realize how much there is, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure. And then when you learn it, it's so satisfying when you sort of, you know, when I think back to 18 months, 2 years ago, before I started on the admin track, and when I started those first couple of webinars, and I was like, wow, this is a lot. And then you come out the other side and you realize how far you've come with that learning journey. It's all possible. We've got all the
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely possible. And if you've got Salesforce, I mean, I think I would advise anyone coming into this, if you're coming from another development background, another .NET or a similar sort of platform, and you're moving into Salesforce, you'll find the coding aspects of it in Salesforce quite simple. But what you'll struggle with is getting the Salesforce background, and you really need to know that. So I'd advise anyone sort of coming across to do an admin course or something similar to get to grips with the fundamentals of Salesforce as a platform before you start developing. I've seen a lot of developers come across who fall over because they don't understand Salesforce enough, and the Salesforce knowledge is more important actually than the programming knowledge to kind of do this course and move on with this course.
That's a really good point, because I do have people who are from other developer backgrounds, and I've had a few people say that a lot of platform developer one is about understanding the admin level so that you don't do developer solutions when you don't need to.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. But if you're, I mean, yeah, if you've got a good sort of Salesforce knowledge and you're coming into this, you've got administration knowledge and you've been using the platform for a while, yes, you'll find some of the kind of the topics in this a bit of a challenge, but it will be very rewarding. At the end of it, you won't be that person who's sitting there thinking, well, I know a trigger over there does something, but I've got no idea what it is. So you have to get a developer in who's going to kind of say, oh, that's going to take for ages to do that because it's really complicated or whatever. You will actually be in a position where you'll be able to actually open it up, have a look, and get a fair idea of what's really going on. And maybe if it's your bag, if that's sort of something you want to get into more, you'll be able to go in and tweak things and make changes and stuff at the end of this. But yeah, you'll feel much more confident, especially if you're administrating a really big org that's got a lot of legacy code and stuff in it.
That's really, really good. Thank you very much for that. Let's talk a little bit about the Supermums course more specifically. So we've got a course that actually started just yesterday, but we run them several times a year. So we will have, speaking now, we'll have courses coming up in summer and the autumn. So it's a 12-week course, and we recently kind of adjusted a little bit the structure of it based on our learning. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the structure of the course and how it's running at the moment.
Yes, still very early days, still time if anyone wants to join, I think. I think this is from the good thing about Supermums and the way they run courses is that they're constantly reviewing how the courses have been run, and then they're using that learning and the feedback. People, you know, when everyone always gets feedback questionnaires at the end of things, and
yeah,
I'm sure in a number of places they don't go very far. But you can tell from this one that the feedback has been taken into account and changes have been made. So what happened in the first round is that there were very long webinar sessions which people could join, and it was a teaching time and also a time to kind of ask questions and trying to make it a kind of a learning a two-way process. But I think what was found is that actually, well, a few things. One is those sessions were quite long, so you had to kind of find a suitable period of time to be able to do it, and you had to turn up at that time to do it. And also taking in knowledge and processing that, and then coming up with questions and stuff all in the same session, I think people found difficult. So the way things have been split now is that all of those sessions are recorded. So you can go in and you can watch those sessions whenever you like. You can watch them in parts, in pieces, over a period of time, or you can watch them in one go. Alongside this, you've kind of got your project you'll be working on, of course, with your mentor, where you can ask them questions about things each week. But then to supplement this, that we're going to have an hour session a week, where hopefully we'll all come on and we can chat about what we've learned in the previous week, what questions we've got, and maybe that might be related to the project. It might be related to the things you're learning. You might want to explore topics a bit deeper, or you might just have sort of got to the first slide of the first thing and thought, oh my God, and you just want to come along and find out that other people are in the same boat and get those questions answered, and be told that actually, yes, you have got the right idea, that you are going in the right way. You are learning things. So what we're going to do is, we've got all the materials which you can sort of pick up and use at your leisure. There's the mentoring that's going on with your project. And then, of course, there's this, we're running these hour sessions. And, of course, there's chat and stuff and various other things going on at the same time to support you. So
let's just mention a little bit the project, because that's what a lot of people ask about, because it's kind of one of the unique kind of selling points, if you like, of the course with Supermums, because not a lot of other courses offer kind of that practical element to really build your confidence and put your skills into practice. So like with our administrator course, it's working with a non-profit partner to really help them with a specific project, and it is building a directory, right, and using the visual force and apex and putting that into practice. Yes,
yeah. I mean, I guess I'm biased. I mean, everyone's got different ways of learning. I'm personally, this is the sort of thing that would work well for me, because I find I have to actually have a project or something to work on to really understand a new technology, whatever that is, and whether that's getting to learn flows and the way they're evolving at the minute, or process builders, or workflow, or in this case, Visual Force and Apex. I need something where I can actually do it, actually use it, to actually kind of really cement what I've learned. I mean, think of the resources, things like Trailhead and stuff. We reference a lot of Trailhead things which you can go in and do. I find they're fine, but unless I then actually go and use what I've just, there's a name for different types of learning styles, isn't it? I'm sure I'm one of them. But unless I actually then go and use it and do something with it, then it doesn't really cement it. I can get the points and I can get the badges, but until I've actually used it, I don't really understand it, I don't think. So I think that's a really powerful part of this course. And it's, of course, what you won't get with the kind of standard Salesforce courses, because they've got you locked in a room for a week or whatever, and they're imparting all this information. There's not time for them then to say, well, could you just do a project on the side?
Yeah.
But having this kind of this distance learning method that's over a period of time allows us to do those sort of things, which I think is really useful.
I hope that you have it and it actually sinks in, so you can actually use it rather than just learn, pass exam.
Yes.
Now what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's at the end of it, you'll have something that's actually working. You will have built that. You'll have gone from the beginning of this course where people might talk to you about code and stuff and all the rest of it, and you'll think it's some kind of foreign language. And then at the end of it, you will have actually coded something, which will be phenomenal. And everyone will get to that point, and you can look back and think, flipping heck. Something when we're finally allowed down the pub again at some point in the future, you'll be able to tell people, look, I'm a programmer. Done.
Yeah, that's really a really great part of our course, is that opportunity to put it into practice. So the course that is included in the 12 weeks, isn't it? So the whole thing should be about 12 weeks. At that point, you should have learned everything you need to know to then go ahead and take the exam, which, like most Salesforce exams, is kind of multiple choice, right? And it's about selecting the right answers and perhaps reading little bits of code and knowing what they'll do, rather than you're not going to have to write any code for the exam or anything like that.
No, I did it. No, fortunately, you don't. I did an exam. was it a few years ago where I actually had to write code on a piece of paper, which was flipping awful. But fortunately, no, you don't need to do that. It's multi-choice. If you've done any of the other certifications, it's just the same sort of format as that. Yeah, so you'll get a piece of it'll be lots of it is going to be aimed at the sort of things we were talking about earlier, which is really getting to grips with which different things you should use, which parts of the platform you should use to solve certain problems. So it'll be, well, if someone wants to update a field on this record, then what sort of trigger should they use? And that might seem like gobbledygook at the minute, but I assure you by the end of the 12 weeks, that'll all kind of make sense.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We've got a couple more minutes for you to submit any questions. So do get those into me if you've got any questions about the course. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a course summary. So it's 12 weeks of learning. You've got practical, you've got the recorded material, the open hours, and also the opportunity to work on a practical project with a non-profit. Alan's the one leading the office hours, which is why I wanted to introduce you to him today. We have got, so the first webinar was yesterday, so if you're watching this live or any time in mid-April, then you can join us, but we do have further dates later on in the year, so keep an eye on our social media and our website, and also download a pack, and then we'll always email you the course start dates for further courses that are coming up. One thing to note about the current course is Heather, Supermums founder and MD of Economic Change, who supplies a lot of our work experience projects. She's actually on the architect track herself. She's got some big ambitions, and she's going to be joining this course actually. So if you join up, you'll be learning alongside her, and she's actually probably a really good motivator to keep you going on the course as well. How are you? Have you spoken to Heather yet, Alan?
Yes, yeah, we had our first session yesterday. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, she said, funny how she was describing the reasons why she wanted to take the course up, and yeah, part of it is the move on towards the kind of is part of the architect track, but she was also saying that she wants to be in a position where she fully understands all the different parts of the platform and what should be used for which job. She says she still thinks she'll be contacting a developer to kind of do things, but at least she'll know when she should be.
Yeah, when and who and how to ask.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Well, I haven't seen, I'll just give the chat one last look. In the meantime, I'll bring this up on the screen. So if you haven't already, you can download some further information about the course from our website. You can also book in a one-to-one call with me. If you didn't get an opportunity to ask any questions today, or you think of something later, please do book in with me. My details are right there, and also follow us on social media to get all the latest updates on our course start dates that will be upcoming. No, I haven't got any more questions right now, so all that remains for me to say is thanks very much, Alan. It was great to spend a bit of time and to meet you, and yeah, hopefully you'll have some more students joining you soon.
Yeah, hope so.
Thanks, Alan. Take care.
Thanks. Cheers.